President William Ruto is asking Gen Z protesters not to burn their country in what appeared to be a departure from his usually abrasive style. The president seemingly implored protesters to become part of the solution, saying they were sending the country.
Why do Africans love Traoré? While Kenyan police, yes police, are the ones screaming enough. This question is spreading like a spark in the dark. And if you follow African politics, you will understand. This is not a phenomenon. This is a historic turning point. In Burkina Faso, a young president named Traoré has not only rejected the IMF, but also rejected fear. He has inspired with strong words, clear actions, and above all, trust in his people. And in Kenya, one of the most developed countries in West Africa, it is the police, the guardians of order, who are now taking to the streets, refusing to be instruments of an exploitative system. It is no longer just politics. This is a confrontation between two concepts of leadership, one inspiring, one exhausting. Let's get to the facts, to see what is really happening in both countries that is forcing the continent to choose sides. Kenya, July 2024. Thousands of paramilitary police took to the streets of Nairobi, chanting "Enough is enough." Some stripped off their uniforms in front of the cameras, declaring their resignation from their role as the lackeys of a government that doesn't listen to the people. For the first time in a decade, law enforcement itself was protesting against the system it served. The reasons? Inflation had exceeded 20%. The local currency was losing value, and IMF loans forced the Kenyan government to cut public spending, cutting police, education, and health sector bonuses. Meanwhile, in Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré appeared at a community education fair in Kenya at the same time. No bodyguards, no big stage. He declared, "We don't need loan conditions. We need living conditions." Traoré refused the IMF loan, instead calling on the people to pitch in, and was greeted as a hero. No protests, no police on the streets, just groups of young volunteers repairing schools and offering free classes. What do you believe is making the difference? Policy, leadership, or the trust of the people? To understand, we have to delve into the nature of the two countries and how the two leaders chose such opposite paths. What endeared Ibrahim Traoré to Africans was not his eloquent speeches or his military uniform, but the feeling that he was one of them. Not born into wealth, not educated in Europe, not following an imported political model, Traoré entered politics with a single weapon: his candor. When he announced his rejection of an IMF loan, the Western media called him reckless. But in the eyes of the people of Burkina Faso, it was not recklessness. It was the first act in years of someone daring to say no on their behalf. In a continent accustomed to leaders speaking on behalf of foreign countries, a man who stood up for his people was unusual. Traoré did not promise a raise. He did not promise subsidies. He promised to give back land to the farmers, to give back trust to the forgotten. His community talks were not air-conditioned, not broadcast live on glossy television, but he came, sitting on the ground, listening to women talk about their lost fields, children without classes, and unemployed youths who wanted to leave the country. When you live in a society where politicians only appear during election season, having a leader willing to walk into the village with the people, without cameras, without a script, is unheard of. And the strangest thing, the love for him did not come only from Burkina Faso. People in Mali, Niger, Senegal, even Nigeria, who were tired of the repetitive political system, all started calling him by names like "Son of the Mainland," the second Thomas Sankara, or simply, the one who speaks for us. Have you ever loved a leader not because of his promises, but because of his timely silence and his willingness to do the difficult thing? If someone dared to say frankly, "We are not poor, we have just lost our trust," would you stand by them? But while Traoré rebuilt his country with faith, another country, Kenya, responded to the crisis in the complete opposite direction. In Kenya, when the police force began to protest, it was not simply a strike for rights, it was a cry from the heart of the system. They were not the underprivileged, poor farmers or unemployed. They were symbols of state power. But in the cycle of debt, spending cuts and rising living costs, the very people who once upheld the law became victims. Between 2020...
Welcome to African Diary 24, the channel where Africa speaks for itself. From powerful stories and rich cultures to political realities and grassroots movements, we bring you content that informs, inspires, and challenges the narrative. Whether you're here to learn, connect, or explore, you're in the right place. This is Africa, unfiltered, unapologetic, and rising. Hit that subscribe button and become part of the journey. Disclaimer: the content featured on African Diary 24 is for informational, educational, and documentary purposes only. We aim to represent stories with accuracy and integrity, but the views expressed in interviews or commentary do not necessarily reflect those of the channel. We do not promote hate, violence, or political bias. Viewer discretion is advised, especially for sensitive topics. Always do your own research and think critically.
Today's episode of Inside the Mind of a Detective is titled Behind the Badge: What Traoré's leadership means for Kenya's future. Before we start, please remember to subscribe so that you can be notified whenever we upload a new video. Kenyan police officers have been marching in the streets of Nairobi in protest. They are protesting against poor working conditions, low pay and high taxes. But above all, they are protesting against extrajudicial killings. The police say the government has given them an impossible task. They want the officers to shoot protesters. The police cannot do this because they say it is inhuman. It is also illegal. For now, the government has ignored their pleas. In fact, Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki has threatened to unleash the full force of the law on protesters. That is why some 34 police officers have been arrested. We shall continue following this story, but today's show is not about Kenya. It is about Paul Henry Damiba Traoré, the charismatic leader of Burkina Faso. He came to power in a military coup last year. His soldiers ousted the government of President Paul Henry Damiba Traoré, who was serving his second term in office. The people of Burkina Faso supported the coup. To them, it was a necessary evil. They wanted change and they got it. And since then, things have been looking up. When Traoré came to power, Burkina Faso was on its knees. Its economy was shattered, thanks to years of mismanagement. There were also extremist groups that had taken over large swaths of territory. These groups had declared independence from Burkina Faso. When Traoré took charge, he visited the northern town of Kaya. This is where the unrest began. Traoré told the people he would help restore order. And true to his word, he did just that. His security forces fought the rebels and drove them out of most towns. But this is not what made the people of Burkina Faso fall in love with him. It was what happened next that won their hearts. Instead of taking land from the rebels or giving it to the army, Traoré gave it back to the people. On November last year, he visited the village of Gaskindabel. This is where the uprising began. Traoré presided over the handover of land to its rightful owners. This land had been taken during the reign of President Blaise Compaoré. The people of Gaskindabel could not believe their eyes. Here was a leader who was giving them back what had been taken from them. They cheered and cheered and cheered. One man stood out. He was wiping tears from his eyes. This was the village elder, Malamisaka. He had worked on that land for many years. It was his source of livelihood. Then the soldiers came. They told him he was a rebel. He had to abandon his home and his farm. When Traoré returned the farm to him, he was overwhelmed. "I am very happy," he said. "This land belongs to my father and it will belong to my children." This is how Traoré is winning the hearts of the people of Burkina Faso. He is also touching the lives of the youth. When he came to power, only 25% of Burkinabés were employed. Today, the number stands at 75%. All these achievements have come at a cost. Burkina Faso is now being sanctioned by the Economic Community of West African States. ECOWAS has closed its borders with Burkina Faso. It has also banned all financial transactions. The sanctions have hurt ordinary people. This is why Tracy is now appealing to African countries to defy ECOWAS. He says ECOWAS is punishing innocent people. It is stopping food and medicine from reaching those who need them most. On the economic front, things are also looking up. Last week, Traoré visited Ivory Coast. He held talks with President Alassane Dramane Ouattara. The two leaders discussed ways of reviving the economy of Burkina Faso. They also discussed security matters. Mr. Ouattara promised support, especially in the area of security. According to a joint statement, Ivory Coast will help Burkina Faso in the fight against terrorism. Ivory Coast will also help to stabilize the situation in the north, and this is a big deal. You see, Ivory Coast is contributing troops to the United Nations peacekeeping mission in Mali. So Ivory Coast already has experience in fighting extremists in the region. All these stories bring us to the question that inspired the title of today's show. What does Traoré's leadership mean for Kenya's future? As you can see, Traoré is more than a soldier. He is a visionary leader. He is transforming the lives of ordinary people. He is giving them back what belongs to them. And more importantly, he is empowering the youth. Here in Kenya, the youth make up 65% of the population. They are our future leaders, but if we don't invest in them now, they will lead us into chaos. Most of them are unemployed. Some have dropped out of school. Others never went to school at all. If we don't invest in the youth now, they will become a burden to this country. But what is stopping us from investing in the youth? Like Traoré has shown us, it is lack of political goodwill. Since independence, our leaders have not invested in the people of Kenya. They have kept us in abject poverty. They have neglected our health facilities. Our schools are in a sorry state. Our roads are a nightmare, and the list is endless. But it does not have to be this way. We have what it takes to transform this country. We have the human resource. What we need is good leadership. We need leaders who can tap into our potential. Leaders who can utilize our resources to the maximum. We need leaders who can take us out of this IMF-sponsored austerity. And it doesn't have to be the same old faces. Sometimes we need fresh ideas. We need to give the youth a chance. The question is, what kind of youth are we going to entrust with leadership? It is not the youth who engage in destructive activities. It is not the youth who get drunk and destroy property. It is not the youth who engage in cyberbullying. It is not the youth who are involved in land grabbing. It is not the youth who engage in ethnic clashes. It is not the youth who are involved in drugs and substance abuse. No, 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 that is not the kind of youth we are talking about. We are talking about the youth who are in class today, trying to build a better future for themselves and the country at large. We are talking about the youth who are in the fields feeding the nation. We are talking about the youth who are in factories making sure that our industries remain competitive. We are talking about the youth who are coming up with innovative ways of solving problems in our society. We are talking about the youth who are asking questions. The kind of youth we are talking about are inquisitive. They want to know how things work. They ask questions like, why is there so much suffering in our country? They ask questions like, why is our country in debt? They ask questions like, why are we still importing certain products yet we can make them here? Such youth are the ones who will transform this country. Such youth are what Kenya needs to invest in. And now let's turn our attention to another pressing issue in the country, police brutality. The officers say they are tired of being used to crack down on protesters. They say they are tired of killing unarmed civilians. This is what informed their peaceful protest last week. But instead of listening to their grievances, Inspector General of Police Japhet Koum suspended their leaders. This is the same police that is accused of extrajudicial killings. Now you understand why they are protesting. How can the government expect them to protect life and property, yet they are the ones taking life? How can the government expect them to enforce the law, yet they are violating the law? How can the government expect them to maintain peace, yet they are living in fear? The officers are in a catch-22 situation. They are damned if they do and damned if they don't. And this is not good for this country. It is not good for the people of Kenya. It is not good for the police service. If the government wants the police to enforce the law, they must respect the rule of law. The officers want a lifestyle audit. They want to know their colleagues who benefited from the proceeds of crime. They want to know their colleagues who acquired wealth through dubious means. This is a noble cause. The officers should be supported, not punished. By the way, they are also complaining about low salaries. You can't expect an officer to go to a crime scene and collect evidence when he is hungry. You can't expect an officer to arrest a suspect when his wife and children are sleeping on an empty stomach. You can't expect an officer to defend this country when he or she has nothing to benefit from it. And it doesn't have to be this way. We have enough money to pay our officers good salaries. We only need to stop the wastage of public funds. We have to plug the loopholes that the cartels use to siphon public funds. We have to ensure every shilling is accounted for. As you can see, Traoré's leadership offers a ray of hope for the people of Kenya. He is showing us what can be done. He is showing us that we can take our destiny into our own hands. He is showing us that we can change the narrative that Africa is hopeless. No, Africa is full of hope. It is full of promise. It is full of potential. We, the people of Africa, have the power to transform this continent. We, the people of Africa, have the power to chart our own future. Let us, therefore, draw inspiration from Traoré and take our destiny into our own hands. Let us join hands and build a better Africa for ourselves and for our children.